Support for the Pocketnow Weekly comes from Oregon State University. Earn your Oregon State MBA 100% online in a program that is designed to help you move up or make a career change. You can choose from specialized tracks in organizational leadership, business analytics, marketing, or supply chain and logistics management. Get where you're going faster with the Oregon State MBA. Learn more at mba.oregonstate.edu/pocketnow. What was wrong with this? What was wrong with this? This was fun. This was cool. I cherish this little plushie, but this isn't it anymore. It's this.
Yes, I know. That's actually a very good description of what happened. Yeah, pretty much. Although they did move the antennas 1 degree and shift the eyes down, so
this looks like a muffin top.
You can do that.
That's So that's literally what this. By the way, Issa and I were playing around with this little plush, and I found out I could actually rip the head off without damaging anything.
I used to have that when I got it from like ThinkGeek back in the day.
Oh, it was a ThinkGeek thing.
Years ago. Yeah,
it says ThinkGeek right here. Shouts out.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that. But okay, so what would you characterize as the problem with the way Android was that led to this change?
There are a few things, and I think so. Google's main push for this whole change was accessibility. And basically, slowly over the last couple of years, the last couple of Android versions, accessibility has been like a huge major push, right? Like at I/O, they released this big thing that was, it was like a text-to-speech thing and a speech-to-text thing. And like Live Transcribe, I think it was called, where you could like talk into it and it was basically like Google Translate / voice search, but for people that were hard of hearing / hard of speaking.
Yeah.
Anyway, besides that point, a lot of Google's products have been really focused on accessibility in like the last 2 years. And Google kind of took a look at the Android logo. And actually, this was kind of spurred by the fact that they were trying to figure out what the internal name of Android Q should be, which is actually pretty funny. Like a while ago, they were just like, wow, Q is hard. And I think that the name that they ended up going with was Queen Cake.
Queen Cake? That Queen was cake. What it was supposed to... What does that mean?
It is basically like a layered cake that has like cake and then cream and then cake and then cream, and it's a type of cake.
So a layered cake.
A layered cake, yes. Yeah, and then I think Steve Burke referred to it as Quince Tart. Basically, they have different internal names to the names that end up going public, just to hide the whatever. But as they were trying to figure out the name for Q, they kind of had this realization that, like, one, we're probably going to have to go with something a little more like random that like a lot of the world might not really know what it is. And they kind of took a look and they were like, all right, well, at I/O we announced that we have 2.5 billion users now on Android. It was like 2 years ago that they announced they hit 1 billion. And they're like, wow, well, Android is huge now. It is a global brand. It's not just something that we can pretend we only use in Silicon Valley and nowhere else, which they tend to do.
But the
they
thing
make
is,
products.
But that's not just because of the fact that Android has reached its latest version in what was supposed to be Q. It's also because of other versions of Android. You have Android 1, you have Android. Well, there was another one, not just Android 1. I'm trying to remember the name.
Oh, Go?
Yeah, Android Go. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a certain level of like fragmentation involved. Obviously, like those two words go hand in hand, Android and fragmentation. Yeah. Does the Android 10, or because that's what it's supposed to be called now, is Android 10. Does the rebrand address any of that fragmentation? Because it doesn't seem like it from an outside perspective.
So they haven't talked publicly about like Go or the other one. One, yeah. And I think they still need to change the logos because the Android word mark has actually been changed. But like them kind of thinking about the fact that like Q was hard made them realize that if you think about it, like a lot of the previous names, by the way, I'm sick, so sorry if my voice is raspy or if I'm wiping my nose. A lot of the previous names didn't really work on a global scale. because people in other countries might have no idea what a marshmallow is or like a nougat. Like, and no one really knows how to pronounce nougat either. It's like nougat, nougat. I don't know, nugget. So they kind of realized like, all right, these are fun, and we can still do them internally, but numbers are universal, and even though it's a little more boring, it's probably going to be better for the planet and also like general consumers, right? Android is pretty obviously, and I asked them about this. I was like, a lot of people kind of think that you're moving to try to be more like Apple and make things just like Google blank, you know, kind of like Apple's products are all like Apple X or like whatever, and Google is kind of slowly transitioning things. Like Android Auto is still Android Auto, but most of products that had Android Auto on the front are changing to Google blank. Like Android Pay is Google Pay, and so I kind of told them like people are gonna kind of see it as you trying to be more like Apple, but they were really just like, this is honestly an accessibility move first. And in the process of like thinking about the fact that they wanted to change the name to just be numbers, which is going to be easier for everybody, they were like, we actually haven't really put a lot of thought into the actual logo or the word mark. One thing is that they had the original Android logo, which was like this limey green thing. And then in 2014, they kind of 3D'ized it. That's the 2014 version, I think.
Okay, because it does seem a little bit lighter.
Or actually, that might be the original one. I don't know.
It seems a little lighter, yeah.
Yeah, that's the original one. In 2014, they made it like a darker green, and that's the like, you know, 2D Android that does the peace signs that you know today.
And that was also when the Roboto font, wasn't that sort of when it came out? Yeah.
And Roboto, later Google Sans came out, which is now I think called Open Sans. But they were like, we didn't really put any thought into the new branding. They had just kind of like made a new age tech branding. And they realized like our packaging, our branding colors, we don't even have a palette. The only color we have is one color. And then there's this set of guidelines for branding. And the guidelines kind of dictate like, how well does this color work with other colors? Is this color easy to see for people who are hard of sight? And for red-green colorblind people, that specific shade of green was very, very green. And for red-green colorblind people, like they can't distinguish the difference between green and like red.
Oh, is that right?
So that's what it is. It's like everything kind of looks more brown. So they were like, okay, well, how can we fix this? If we still need Android to be green because it's always been green. We're not changing the color. We can't change the color. What we can do is one, create an official color palette that will allow us to like actually use Android on branding, because the only color that like it passed the guidelines for was the green on white. And that was it. So they created this new official color palette that has like green and this orange and this blue and whatever. But they added the official Google blue into the green to make it more of like a blue-green. And what that does is...
It looks subtle, though. Like, I'm going to put up...
It's pretty subtle.
Yeah, I'm going to put up a couple of these logos right now, and it does honestly look like the Android just sort of got a tan, I guess. Like, it might be...
But for, like, red-green colorblind people, it actually makes a pretty big difference. Because when you add blue into that, it makes it easier for them to distinguish it.
I would actually love to see, like, an example of that. Like, if they were able to show... Like,
there's some cool...
colorblind glasses, right?
They do, yeah.
Show that. Yeah.
They do, yeah. And there's some cool websites that can show the difference. What that also did was it allowed it to work better with the branding, because, like, if you put official Google Blue in there, you can put the green with the official Google Blue and it'll look really natural. And then they introduced like a navy and this orange and whatever. And then as for like the Android robot itself, they didn't say exactly why they cut off the body, but I think the reasoning was because they want to put the word mark and the actual mascot together. Because and I made this joke in my article and in my video, and I was wondering if anyone caught it. But I basically said, like, they want the word mark and the logo to be together, but not the same.
Oh, I did kind of notice your wordplay with that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you meant that to be a joke, but I was like, oh, that's clever.
that was their whole like campaign.
So how about that? Is that campaign still sort of around? That's sort of the tagline for Android, isn't it?
I think it still is. That campaign launched in like 2015, but I haven't really seen any like ads around it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It was kind of like a very pro-diversity, like Android's for everybody type ad. I don't know if they're still pushing that. Yeah. They're getting rid of the Androidify website though.
Oh, is that right? So you can't make the actual, because they cut off. Yeah, they would have
because they cut off the.
They would have decapitated Androids all over the place.
They didn't. Yeah, so they didn't say. My assumption, and I should have asked them this. I kind of forgot during the interview. They didn't say why they really cut off the body. I'm assuming it's just because they wanted to put the word mark and the logo together, and it just makes it easier if it's a lot less. It's simpler. They shifted the antenna by 1 degree because it felt friendlier, and then they shifted the eyes down to make it feel more human. And with the antenna, you can actually do these really cool things like, making the antenna look that way, and then the eyes go that way, and look that way, up and then down. And I made a few custom animations that kind of show how that could work. And so they also changed the word mark. They added a curve. It's really, really subtle. In the word mark, if you look at the bottom of the letters, instead of just being straight and having like very harsh 90-degree angles, there's actually a curve. And that curve is the same radius as the curve of the Android logo's head.
Yeah.
And they did that because they were going to put them together, so they figured like this will make it feel like more of a family instead of being very separate things. They want them to be together all the time. So now when you see the Android branding, you'll see the head either on top of the word mark or right next to it.
So where do you land on the whole notion of 10, like Android 10? I get that from a code basis, like it is the 10th version in a way, because wasn't it like Jelly Bean and Ice Cream Sandwich, like those ones were like 4 point something?
Yeah, it was like 4.0, 4.1, 4.2.
Yeah, something like that. So we're not really at the 10th, but we are also.
Well, they also started on Cupcake. There was Alpha, Beta, Cupcake, so it's like...
well, there you go. Like the Android 10, it does kind of ring, it does like roll off the tongue pretty easily, but at the same time, did you ask Google at all if they felt like users, or rather like, nerds like us, would get a little bit confused? It's a little bit of confusion behind the naming conventions now that it's changing so drastically.
They actually thought that people would understand it better, and I personally kind of agree with that.
Okay.
Because whenever I talk to people and they are complaining about something in their OS, I'm like, oh, like what version are you on? And they'll be like, I don't know. And I'll be like,
wow.
Oh, like they introduced this feature.
Which dessert are you eating?
Yeah, I'll be like, oh, they introduced this feature in Nougat, and they'll be like, what? People they don't understand. So it's not only for the universal audience in terms of like the geeks, but also like any normal person.
I guess the only thing I would say then is, as far as the version numbers are concerned, I would just hope that Google doesn't do the point system too much. I don't want there to be like a 10.1 next year, and then it's going to get so played out at some point. I guess that would be my opinion on that.
I think they're still just going to do full version updates.
Yeah.
Like they're probably just going to do 10, 11, 12. Like, well, Apple's on iOS 11, right?
Yeah.
So, or 13. They're on 13.
Is it 13?
Way behind.
I thought it was 11. Oh, it's iPhone 11. That's what we were thinking of.
Yeah, iPhone 11. Yeah, but they're on 13. So I think Google's going to do pretty much the same thing. But
So that's the look, right? So internally they're still going to have those desserts and whatnot, and to us it's just going to be the word and the head. It's really funny, the scene that I have in front of me right now. It really looks like I lopped off the Android's head, and that's exactly what Google did.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, it is an exciting change. But before we get into some audience reactions to all of this, because I have pulled up your video, I also pulled up Jaime's Pocketnow Daily video. Yeah. So I wanted to go through some of the reactions to this kind of thing on this, but we're going to get into a mid-break real quick. I think I have an ad for this one, but let's find out after the break. Today's show is sponsored by Caseta Smart Lighting Control from Lutron, pioneers in smart home technology. A lot of people think you need smart bulbs to get smart lighting, but there is a smarter way. Caseta's smart dimmers and switches replace the switch in your wall so that all of the lights controlled by that switch will act smart. Think about all the places in your home where one switch controls multiple bulbs. With Caseta, you'll save money by replacing the switches instead of replacing all of the bulbs. Smart bulbs are only smart when the switch is on, after all. If someone switches it off, you can say goodbye to the smart control and the connectivity. So last time I talked about how I had the plug adapter so that anything plugged into it and then plugged into the wall becomes smart. So we have some lamps that are turning on a set schedule that was made using the app. I've now added on an actual smart switch. We replaced one of the switches for a chandelier in a different room, and I have synced those up to the same schedule. It's pretty awesome because we now know that those lights will definitely come on at certain hours during the day. So you can get smart lighting the smart way with Caseta by Lutron Smart Switches. Learn more about Caseta at lutron.com/weekly. That's lutron.com/weekly. All right, we're back from the break. There are a couple of recurring segments that I want to be sure we get through, as usual on every episode. The first thing that we're going to do this time is we're going to go through a few of the comments from last week's episode. Now, I know a lot of people are getting a little bit sick of the fact that Huawei is always in the news. Well, tell the U.S. government administration about that. But in any case, last week, TK was actually here, sitting on that very couch with that light in the background. And we talked about Huawei and the fact that he went to China and spent a lot of time with Huawei. Jaime was there as well, but I had TK here for that particular show. Quick shout out to TK. Thank you so much for coming down last week. A commenter said that Dragon Ball t-shirt is awesome, and that's true. TK always has some great Dragon Ball stuff. Let me see here. Here's a funny one from Sexy Ford FRS. Anyway, hey Josh, I just learned that China actually has a better relationship with The Rock than they do with the US. I think that's not hard to do. I mean, it's The Rock. Sean Burns did provide a bit of a connection between last week's show and this week's, in the sense that Google has been quiet about the ban ever since. I hope it gets resolved because I love Huawei and Honor. I kind of feel that way too. Google actually hasn't said a whole lot about this whole Huawei ban.
Did you hear the news? It was either yesterday or the day before that the Mate 30 Pro will not have Google Play services.
I think I did see a headline about that, yeah. But you know, it kind of makes Google. It somewhat makes sense though, because I mean, obviously with the ban and whatnot. But during this media tour that everyone was on, they showed off Harmony OS, so it's clear that they have something to show for it.
But only on a TV.
That's true. They needed to control it.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got here. Pretty Boy Flizzy. I love these names, by the way. Like, you guys are so funny on the Pocketnow comment sections. Bought a Mate 20 Pro and it destroys all cameras I've used on smartphones. While that is debatable, I agree that the Mate 20 Pro, it has been an incredible camera.
I think the Mate 20 Pro, I got my best photos from like any review I've ever done on that phone. Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. What happened to the live podcast? Well, I mean, we moved to this format. That way it's easier for us to get together and schedule and whatnot. And also it's a bit easier on us to be on the show rather than having to do everything so live. Cuts can actually happen.
Yep.
Let's see. Let's see what we got. Yeah. I think that should pretty much do it for this. A lot of people were asking where Jaime is. Jaime will actually be back on the show next week because we're all going to be at IFA. So I'm actually planning on doing a lot of one-on-one episodes with people like Jaime, with Issa. David, if you're better by then, it'd be great to be in the same room as you. And
I tweeted this today. I think I've been sick every other week for like a year. I'm so tired of being sick.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. All right. So our other recurring segment, I think this might be an easy answer. Of course, nothing under NDA. Don't say anything under NDA, David. But what is in your pocket now?
Oh, no 10 Plus.
Yeah, same. I was figuring that was going to be the case.
Get that shimmer, baby. Yeah.
I got a case for it because I was planning on putting a pop socket on it, but
you're smart.
I just couldn't get past that Oracle. It's even showing right now. I had to get a clear case.
Yeah, you can see it. Yeah. No, you're smart for getting a clear case. My first one slid off a table and broke. So.
Oh no, but that's a fresh one.
This is a fresh one. Yeah.
All right, good. I'm still hunting that Note 10 Red. I'm still hunting. It's
I want
really
the
hard
red
to find.
so bad. It's such a good color.
Even then, the other one, the Aura Blue, that's also kind of hard to find. I've been noticing that it's sold out at Best Buy now.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was looking. As in my search for the Aura Red, I saw that the Aura Blue is actually pretty hard to find still. All right, so now that we're kind of on the theme of going through some of the comments, I'm gonna start off with the Pocketnow Daily comment section. I mean, after all, we are on this one, but we're gonna go to your video, David, in a little bit as well. All right, cool. SRASC, Android 10 is a decent update. Kind of surprised they dropped the the dessert naming scheme though, which kind of brings me to one of my main not really concerns, but I might be a little bit bummed out about this. What's going to happen to the Android statues? There's no more statues.
There will be statues.
But how?
They're making numbers statues that are just numbers.
They're just numbers? Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean they've got the font with the special font that they're using. So yeah, it is a little bit sad. You can kind of tell that they started to get kind of lazy though, because the pie one is literally just an Android robot holding a piece
pie.
Of pie, which really honestly bothered me because the human body is an upside down triangle.
It's a little bit pie shaped, right? Yeah.
They totally could have done that.
Could have just been wearing a costume that looked like a pie.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah. Anyway, a Halloween costume.
My favorite little. I think I have it over there. Is the Android holding a big marshmallow? That's still one of my favorite little figurines.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That would have been so easy because the Android is already shaped like a marshmallow.
That too, but I love the idea of it just holding that marshmallow.
Yeah.
Utkarsh S. Google. I just thought this one was funny. Google is moving to Mexican food names and starting with quesadilla. I love that.
Yeah, you could probably do that.
And like you mentioned in the first half of the show, Tyrone Cunningham, who else thinks Google is changing its name scheme because they can't find a dessert that starts with Q? I mean, technically they did, but they...
It was one of the leading reasons why they started thinking about accessibility. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Android quiche, anyone? By Ghost Panda X. Quiche is a savory dish, is the problem.
So that's something that Dave Burke actually said, is that quiche, he said even with pie, that was an issue, because pie is a sweet dish in the US, but in a lot of countries, meat pies are more popular than sweet pies.
Yeah, shepherd's pie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember having the thought in the past that the desserts, why couldn't they be also localized? I mean, if they localize video games, you could localize the name of an operating system in a way. So when Android P came out and we had Pi, right? I kept thinking that in the Philippines it should just be called Android Polvoron. Shout out to our Filipino viewers. It's a little how would you describe it? It's just like a puff pastry that disintegrates in your mouth. Not a puff pastry, right? No, it's a cracker cookie, a powdery. It's powdery. That's the term I was looking for, not puff.
I think just that kind of fragmentation would get extremely complicated.
That's true. I'm adding to the problem at that point.
Yeah.
Let's see. Molly Docky. Oh, it's a shortbread cookie. It's Polvoron. Thank you, Isa. Molly Docky. Rebranding is fine. It was needed for such a long time. How do you feel about that?
I think it was kind of the right move because it was fun and I appreciate it, and at least they're still going to come up with internal code names and people could just call it that if they want. Mm-hmm. But I think for Google, their main goal right now is to become easier to understand and less exclusive in terms of being so nerdy and only for the nerds. They want to be for everybody, and I said earlier, people have no idea what I'm talking about when I ask if they're on Nougat. So
yeah, that makes sense. And even then, if you because of the disparity between the names and the numbers, you also can't really say are you on Android 8?
Yeah,
and it's also tough to do that.
Yeah.
Let's see this. Wow, I'm gonna have a terrible time with this. João Pedro Ferreira Santos. I love the new look of the logo. It's awesome. Like some people already said in the comments, a new better looking Pixel phone and lower prices, of course, would also be awesome. I don't blame you at all. But yeah, I do
I like the look.
I think the logo is pretty good. I mean, just to be
I think it's very simplistic.
Just to be current, though, I have to make sure this is always sitting on my desk now.
Yeah. That's funny.
All right, so let's head on over to, before we start calling it on this episode, which has honestly been really fun. Sorry that you're sick, by the way, David. Thank you for
That's okay. Again, like every other week.
Yeah. So we're heading over to David's awesome video on Android Authority about the rebrand. Lewis Scott has the top comment with 1.7K likes.
Oh boy.
Quote unquote, we wanted it to look more human. It literally looks like the head of an insect now.
Yeah, I mean, it is called the bug droid. For a reason. But like they shifted the eyes to make it look more human friendly.
Yeah, try to make it a little bit less like antennae, So it's
say,
more like ears.
Might be a little dangerous to go in the YouTube comment section, man. I haven't moderated that very much.
Oh no, it's fine. Yeah, I'm not gonna spill any tea on this episode. I like this one though, Peter the Panda. So we're gonna have Android 17 and 18 one day. Dragon Ball fans are triggered. That's dope. I like that one. Let's see here. And the first like 5 top comments were about if Android was supposed to be more human, you literally cut off a whole body. It's not like that. So that is.
I think
that's a fair. A fair comment, though. I feel like
they didn't tell me this like specifically, but I think like in a way that's also an accessibility thing. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a head, but not everybody has all 4 limbs.
Perhaps so.
Maybe.
Ahmed Haruman. I'm going to miss the dessert names for Android. I guess it will make it easier because across the world, numbers are more universal. That was a good point that you were making.
That's earlier. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Gonna miss the fun names, and then this is the thing though. Like there are always going to be a lot of people who are very into this kind of story because as you have here, Connect D sees Android, clicks instantly. So that's why this news was so big over the last week.
It is called Android Authority though. So.
That's true. That is true. You're kind of there for what you're there for.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess I actually haven't gone through too many of the comments and seen too many people saying like, well, forget the rebrand. We just want to start seeing the phones. I guess and I'm sure some people were saying that because I know that I've seen those as well, especially tweets. Mm-hmm. No news whatsoever on like the release of Android 10 or, I mean, obviously the Pixels are kind of impending in the next couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have an official date for Pixel 4, but I'm assuming it'll be October 4th because that's been the day it's been for the last 3 years. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So probably October 4th, and it'll probably be the first phone to launch with it. So I'm assuming that they'll push it out with that phone, and then like within 2 weeks, the OnePlus 7 Pro will probably get it because OnePlus is really good about updating. Or the Essential phone usually gets that freaking phone usually gets updates like a day after it's released. So.
Yeah, that's actually true. And they're probably going to make that announcement too at the Pixel event, right? Like, here are our partners.
Yeah. They did that at I/O for like how many people were jumping into Android Q. So.
Yeah, and to your point that you were saying right before we got onto this show, Tim Vels, wow, I didn't know logo designs were this particular about color and shapes, etc. That seems like a lot of work for the team to come to one conclusion on it. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
like, this is how much goes into design.
There's a lot, I think, and you have to also think about like the amount of people that were working on that too. Getting that many people to agree about like a specific thing is like very hard.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And my video only has like one snippet of my interview with Sydney, because I did a full interview with the lead for the redesign.
I actually do want to, I don't mean to interrupt, I want to add to what you're about to say. I actually wanted to ask you, how would you characterize that whole meeting? Because it seems like some really like deep Google stuff going on that you were like privy to, like, and it must have been awesome to like be there and actually do that.
Yeah. Interview. It was really cool because there were 2 meetings. The first one was about a month and a half ago in their brand new Android office, actually, which they opened like literally the day before my meeting with them. There's a whole new Android office in Mountain View, and they showed me around, and I was like, oh, well, I guess this clearly means that they're not going to... I thought that they were going to rebrand Android within the next couple of years to like Google OS or something, just to be more like... this is our core brand, but they seem to be sticking with Android hardcore. Like they're going to be painting that logo on the walls and stuff.
Okay.
But it was cool because they only briefed 4 people. total, which was like crazy. I felt very like privileged to be there. And then I set up an additional interview because the one I had was like pretty brief and I took notes, but I wanted to get direct quotes that one I could use in the story, and I wanted to get some stuff on film that I could put in my video. And I later I looked at my video and I'm like, maybe I should have put one more quote in there to like help drive it home. But yeah, it was crazy. Sydney is really cool. She's really smart, and it was really interesting hearing about all the work that went into like choosing those specific colors and like the shapes and like literally the fact that they moved the antenna by 1 degree. It is 1 degree. Like, that's nuts. I don't know. I appreciate good design, and I think a lot of people think it's unimportant, which is like, debatable. But if they were going to do that, I mean, I think now is probably the right time.
Yeah, I mean, everything is at the 10th iteration, right? So it's kind of be line. I saw that comment on the Pocketnow one. I should have called it out, but it was like iPhone 10, Note 10, S10, Android 10.
Yeah,
which makes sense.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Do you have the so are you ever going to release like the full, not necessarily uncut, but the full interview? Because I noticed that there was only a little part of it in your video.
Yeah, there's only one snippet. I thought about it. It was a pretty, it was actually a pretty on the fly, not on the fly, but like last minute interview, because I was in New York for Note 10 and I had been chasing up Sydney as to when she was free. And she was like, I'm actually in New York this week. Cause like I had met her originally in Mountain View. And she said, I'm actually in New York this week. I land on Thursday night, so I'm only around Friday. And I was like, oh, so I changed my flight and then to be on Sunday. And I was like, hey, can we do the interview Friday? So I do have the full version of the interview. I might cut it up to just be like all of her answers to my questions and then just release that like unlisted on YouTube or something.
I think I'd be really interested in that. And
it's cool.
Yeah, and it's if it ever does come out, you can follow David everywhere. I think we can go ahead and call it on that one. I do want to make sure that we ask everybody our question for this episode. Thank you so much for getting into the comment sections for last week's episode or for the last episode's question. For this week, I just want to hear all of your guys' thoughts in regards to the Android rebrand. I'm going to put 2 questions out there. How do you feel about the Android 10 rebrand? All of the different elements, not just the 1 degree ear, but also the what I'll call the Android decapitation, but also the Android logo itself, the fact that the dessert names are going away, and as just sort of the fun final question for this episode, what do you wish Q actually was? And you know what? Let's just go down the line. If you want to continue the alphabet and say what all of the desserts would have been if the dessert naming convention stuck around, go ahead and do that too. Give us the rest of the alphabet and what you would have wanted all of the Android versions to be. Someone did
I still reminisce on that video that you and I did in that closet about what P was gonna be.
Oh, that was so fun! That was such a fun video. I should definitely link to that one again. That one was really fun. Good memories.
I bet so much money on Peppermint. I feel betrayed by Google, to be honest. I feel Peppermint was the play.
There was one other comment, and again, I'm sorry that I didn't get to call this one out earlier when I was going through the comments. Someone said, oh, so we're not going to get Android Vanilla? I was like, oh, damn, that actually sounds pretty good. That would have been exactly what V should have been.
I guess, but at the same time, like, Vanilla also is... Which, you know what's funny? Okay, this is a little bit of a tangent. Vanilla is known to mean, like, basic or, like, very nothing. But vanilla is actually one of the most complex flavors. It has like 13 spices in it to make vanilla. Anyway, vanilla ice cream. Anyway, it's got like vanilla extract and then cinnamon and then like rhubarb and like all this stuff. It's actually one of the most complex ice cream flavors there is. So that's whatever.
There you go. Your fun fact for today. Speaking of fun facts for today, David, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know where to find you?
I'm over on Twitter. That's my main platform at David Imel, DURVIDIMEL. You can also find my writings on AndroidAuthority.com, or I'm trying to update my website currently to be more story focused and not photography focused, because right now it looks like a photography website, but davidimel.com is my website.
Awesome. All right. You know me. I am JV. I love tech and I love to drink me some tea. You can find me at JV Tech Tea on Instagram and Twitter. You can also follow my channel over at youtube.com/Joshua Vergara if you want to see some extra perspectives outside of course, what you're watching right now, which is the Pocketnow YouTube channel. Pocketnow is also found at Pocketnow on Twitter, Instagram, all over the social medias. And all of the links that you would need to find any and all of us on social media are all in the description down below. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in our next episode.